All right, thank you for inviting me. Yes, the 'Ndrangheta is a mafia based in the southern part of the Italian boot in the region of Calabria, but it's probably the mafia with the largest connections and network of partnership across the world, spanning across 5 continents.
And that's an interesting point that you made. It spanned 10 countries, suggesting that it really has spread its tentacles far and wide.
Yes, this is just the latest operation coordinated by several European law enforcement agencies. In this case, this operation involved, of course, Italy, Germany, France, Belgium, Romania, and Portugal, and many other countries. There were also involvement and implications from South American countries and including Australia.
That is remarkable. So how has this particular mafia group spread its tentacles? How have they become so powerful?
Well, one of the peculiarities of the 'Ndrangheta that is deeply rooted in family and kinship ties, and possibly through the diaspora of the Italian population, especially from the Calabria regions. People, of course, the vast majority of people who migrated to foreign countries were law-abiding and very, very hardworking people, but some of them were not really. And these connections become and turn out to be very useful when it comes to organizing illicit trades, such as the drug trade, because of course you have contacts and connection all across these countries and people you can trust, because very often they are part of the family, they are cousins, godfathers, brothers-in-law, fathers-in-law, and this makes them very tight and they can trust each other.
But does that then draw in innocent family members into illegal behaviour?
Well, it's in these cases, you must consider that these are mafia families. So the vast majority, especially of male members, are very often involved in these activities, often because from a very young age, these kids have often been raised into a criminal lifestyle. So we cannot know exactly in detail whether this involves people who are innocent, but I would say that from the evidence that I could see from this operation, most of the people involved are deeply involved and clearly and willingly involved in these illegal trades.
Yeah. You know, of course, Italy has an unfortunate reputation when it comes to the mafia. But I often wonder just how pervasive they still are in life in Italy.
Well, certainly the mafias are still a relevant force and relevant problem for the Italian state. At the same time, I think it's important to point out that in the last decades, at least since the 90s, things have dramatically changed in terms of state reaction. Currently in Italy, we have more than 9,000 individuals in jail, in prison for mafia offenses, some of them in high security regimes. We have certainly affected most of these organizations. The first years, the contrast was mostly against the Sicilian mafia, Cosa Nostra. But I think that this latest operation and many others in the last years are, they somehow give evidence that the state is now turning also against 'Ndrangheta. And I think one major accomplishment here was the capacity to coordinate the activities of law enforcement agencies, not only from Italy, but in finding cooperation from many European and international partners.
Yeah. Because, of course, you know, the mafia is known to not only have illegal activities, but target legal businesses. You know, they start with these low loans and then eventually take over legal operations to, I guess, launder money. I read somewhere that, you know, that their power is financially worth about 3% of the Italian economy. Will 100 arrests really curtail them?
Well, estimates are always very tricky. Our latest estimates of the revenues of the mafias account to a little bit less than approximately 1.5% of the GDP. And of course, this comprises all the different types of mafias. And one other thing that we should bear in mind is that when we talk about mafia, we tend to conflate everything under one single label or several labels, such as Cosa Nostra and 'Ndrangheta. But in the end, this is a constellation of different groups, sometimes cooperating, sometimes, of course, feuding against each other and in conflict. So overall, yes, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Yet, certainly, it's a fact that all the revenues coming mostly from illicit trades can be easily generating opportunities for investments in the economy. I think Italy is doing quite well in trying to trace and seize and confiscate these assets, but at the moment it's still one of the probably most under-researched areas so far.
Yeah. So do you think this recent operation is going to impact the Ndrangheta's operations?
Well, I think yes. Well, first of all, because it was sincerely a very large, massive, and outstanding operation for the number of simultaneous activities they managed to somehow thwart, and at the same time, the number of countries involved. I think one interesting development was that a lot of these activities were prompted by the breaking of crypto phones and crypto chats that criminals all around the world, not only mafia members, were using in the last years. And law enforcement agencies around the world have been successfully seizing or taking control of the servers of these companies. And this is a wealth, this is a treasure trove, because of course, then you find in writing all the plans and all the schemes that these criminals were making. So I think it gives a little sign of hope for this, because clearly we all know that when we work with our smartphone, we interact, we chat with each other, we do leave a trace. And eventually the law enforcement can get to this information and it can exploit, like they have recently, to perform their operations very effectively.
That is really interesting. Francesco, thank you so much. Fascinating story. Good to talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.